Okay, we are rolling, and we are back here at the FP National Conference in Columbus, Ohio. And I have with us today to start us off Margaret Hartigan, who is the founder and CEO of Marstone. Margaret, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chuck. It's lovely to be here.
Really great to have you here. So we were talking a little bit off camera, so I've got a little bit of head start on this. But what you guys do at Marstone is really quite interesting, and it ties in a lot to what we've been focusing on recently, which is helping advisors prepare themselves to win the great wealth transfer, right? So as we know, 70, $80 trillion, depending on who you listen to, is going to change hands, and it's going to go to what I like to call the KOCs, kids of clients. So we want to engage with those folks, but it's hard to justify 10, 15 hours a year for that KOC that's got a $5,000 Roth, but I think you have a solution that helps.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Thanks, Chuck. Well, prior to starting Marstone, I was a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch for north of 10 years. And it was exactly that problem that was one of the inspirations for me leaving a successful practice and starting this company. So Marstone, as a way of backdrop, is a digital investment and goal-based planning platform. It's designed for practitioners and institutions so that it can be white labeled. So we are not a direct-to-consumer platform like a Betterment or a Robinhood. We don't compete with our clients. And when I was an advisor, I was client-facing from 2001 through 2012, and what I found was there's three challenges that the industry faces. The first one is a lack of financial literacy by most people. It's not that they're not bright, it's that they have competing interests, and frankly, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety and shame about math and investments. So could we create a engagement model that met each user where he or she was? So the second thing was that financial advisors, exactly like you said, they oftentimes have restrictions in their technology. A lot of the technology is siloed, and they only have so many hours in the day. And truthfully, a lot of planners and advisors actually plateau at a certain point. And so I thought, could the same tool that helps the direct client, could it also enable the advisor or the planner and also their back office teams? And then lastly, the third challenge I saw was that the younger generations there's so many of them, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that they consume and that they learn is very different. So I left Merrill and decided to create a platform that addressed those three challenges: the financial literacy of the end client, the operational efficiencies and the kind of restrictions of the technology stack and the hours of the day of the advisor or the planner, and then lastly, the younger generation that, to your point, this wealth transference is so massive, there actually aren't enough professionals to meet the demand. My dad's a financial advisor, I was a financial advisor. I created this platform not to disintermediate, but actually to complement and augment. Mm-hmm. And really it has a huge amplifier effect. And it's exactly like you said, even $50,000 accounts probably aren't, economic for a lot of firms.
Right.
But
to give them real planning advice.
Yeah, to give them real planning advice.
I want to throw one thing in this, because we talk about this a lot too, and I love acronyms.
Sure.
So I call a lot of the folks out there, unfortunately, they are PINOs.
Okay.
P-I-N-O. Do you know what a PINO is?
I don't.
Okay. Planner in name only.
Okay.
Right? So it is simple to take a mutual fund, a share, sell it to a KOC, and off they go.
Right.
But what good is that? Right? That's not planning.
Right.
And I think that's what's really interesting about your solution. It actually helps that KOC learn what planning is about, and as they grow into really needing a human CFP, then they can essentially graduate to that. Are you seeing advisors using it that way?
Definitely. I think when typically a planner or an advisor says to a prospect or a client, come in with all your statements. Now, we all know that people actually hide money from us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily want maybe everything to be seen. But what we found by creating this goal-based planning tool that's actually inspired by the New York subway map or the Chicago L map. So if you think about travel, there's many places you can get on and off, but that's true in life too. And then when you look at the arc of most people's lives, we like to think that we're very different as human beings, but we're quite similar, right? As human beings, we care about our health, our loved ones, our pets, and then some hobbies. How we complicate our lives with our mortgage payments, our car payments and things, we do that to ourselves. But at the end of the day, those are the things that we care about. Once someone accumulates wealth, the next thing that they worry about is, will my loved ones know what to do with it, and will they do the right thing? Mm-hmm. So I find that typically PINOs, as you call them, don't have really great tools that help the end client engage in a meaningful kind of intimate way. And I have found using technology that people end up being far more vulnerable and curious and kind of explore than they would actually even after decades of sitting across from the same financial planner. Because we all have such complications of our lives. We might have aging parents, we might have special needs kids, we might be a widow or a widower, and not all of the question sets that we sit down with someone actually engage that kind of information, if you will.
So if you could create a tool that's going to do that to win for the first gen client,
sure,
right? Because you're helping their child, that's a win for the advisor and that KOC. And then when they need that human advice, it's there. So I think it's a really brilliant solution.
Yeah, and you get a lot of, thank you, and you get a lot of insights, right? You start seeing like, patterns of certain types of people, or they might be, they might be the children or the heirs of like the big client, right?
Right.
But when the tool can actually capture the illiquid assets or some of the more complicated things, and it kind of helps them see their life in full, and it helps the younger person or the financially native person start playing with different if-then trade-offs and things of that nature. And so I think the practitioner gets a lot more information, not only about their entire net worth, but also about what their goals, their values, and their timelines are. And my viewpoint is that a lot of people shop aspirationally, and so if you think about Zillow, people look at like the big house, and then they might see, I can't actually afford all that house. They start actually course correcting themselves. Our tool allows that too. Like, I want to retire at this date. Maybe that's not in the cards. Or I want to have a second house. That might not be in the cards. And so they actually unwittingly learn through a gamified solution, but in a way that doesn't make them feel shameful.
Sure. Of course. Well, I think that's a great place to end it for today, and I think it's a fantastic solution. And this is available to be white labeled, right? So if I want to call it XYZ.
Powered by Marstone, or if it can be fully white labeled as well. Yeah, and we really try to take technology that would have previously only been available at the biggest bulge bracket firms and really take it down to the individual. Yeah,
well, we'll leave it on that note. And again, that's one of the many, many reasons why I love the RIA space, because it's such a competitive landscape.
Totally.
Right? Because we're not captive. I don't have to do what XYZ Wirehouse tells me.
That's right.
I could choose the best solution. And the good news with that is there's a ton of solutions, and I think yours is one worth looking at.
Well, yeah, and also the RIA is the talent. They are the brand,
Indeed.
and they each have a different value proposition. Now, how do you get a bigger kind of stage to go out and do that? It has to be digital.
Perfect.
Thanks,
okay.
Chuck.
Margaret, thanks a lot for joining us.
All right, it's great to see you. Thank
Likewise.
you very much.
Okay, so that was the first of the day. We have 4 more coming up, including some really big surprise guests. So stay tuned. We'll be back in another hour with some more content. Thanks for joining us. Okay, thanks
Chuck.
again, Margaret.